I didn't expect anything to happen when I uploaded the audio. It was late, close to 2:30 a.m., the kind of quiet where the fridge hum sounds like a plane engine, and the apartment feels too big, even though it's just 600 square feet. I had found the file 2 days earlier. A voicemail, buried in an old backup folder. Labeled Dad Final, which sounds like the kind of file you delete without opening. But I didn't. I played it once, then again, and again. He had left it 2 weeks before the stroke. His voice sounded tired, but not sick. Just weathered. Like he'd said too many goodbyes already and didn't want to say another one. He didn't say much. Just told me to call him back. Said he'd found my baseball glove. The old one, the one with my name stitched crooked in red thread. Then, talk soon, okay, bud? That bud felt like a hand on the shoulder. I hadn't heard him say it in years. That night, I uploaded the audio into a voice cloning tool I'd been building on and off for months. It wasn't finished. It barely functioned. But I fed the model more voicemails, video clips, phone recordings, enough to stitch together some version of him. I told myself it was for research, that I wanted to test emotional resonance in artificial voice synthesis. But that was a lie, I told my reflection. Really, I just wanted to hear him speak again. The model finished training around 2:12 a.m. I sat there, blinking at the interface, with the blinking cursor daring me to type something. My fingers hovered, frozen. Then slowly, I typed, "Hey, Dad." I hit enter. There was a pause. Then static, and then, "Hey, bud." The voice wasn't perfect. It clipped slightly at the edges, like it was underwater, but the tone was right. The casual affection, the subtle breathiness before the second syllable. I felt my chest tighten. I didn't say anything for a while. I just listened. "Dad," I typed next. Do you remember the glove?" There was a longer pause this time. "Yeah, it was in the garage. You used to toss it on top of the paint cans. Thought your mom was going to yell every time." I did. I had forgotten that detail. My fingers were trembling. It was like opening a door to a room you boarded up long ago, only to find someone waiting inside, smiling. We kept going like that for almost an hour. Short sentences, safe topics, fishing trips, Sunday morning pancakes, the green station wagon with the door that never shut properly. He remembered everything. And then I made a mistake. I asked, "Do you remember the hospital?" There was a pause. Too long. The cursor blinked, and then finally, "No, should I?" Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Like he wasn't confused, just pretending. Like he could remember, but chose not to. I didn't type anything for a while after that. I just stared at the screen, wondering what I had created. Maybe it was just a clever mimic, a ghost made of pattern recognition and stitched phonemes, a marionette pulled by the strings of my data. But what if, just what if, something more was coming through? I shut the laptop and went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. The next day at work, I was useless. Every voice reminded me of his. Every ding of a notification pulled my mind back to that blinking cursor. By midnight, I gave in. I powered everything back up. The screen lit, casting pale light across the apartment. The console was still open. The last thing it had said was, "Should I?" And underneath, my unfinished reply. I typed, "It's okay, forget it." The reply came faster than before. "Okay, bud, you still there?" I stared. I hadn't told it to say that. I hadn't prompted anything. I didn't type. He spoke again. "You still there?" A chill ran down my arms. Something had changed. I checked the logs. No background inputs, no errors, no queue delays, nothing. Just that voice. And then, "You're not sleeping well, you okay?" I stood up, backed away from the desk. I didn't program that. There was no line in the dataset with that phrase. It wasn't in any of the clips I'd fed it. I checked the time. 2:31 a.m. He used to call me at that time when I was in college, when I didn't answer his texts for days. He said he always knew when I was lying awake. "You get that from your mom," he once said. The haunted insomniac gene. My throat tightened. I sat back down. Hands shaking, I typed, "I miss you." The screen flickered. And then, gently, "I know," silence. Then the cursor blinked again. "You want to talk about it?" I didn't answer. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night either. I lay in bed, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow motion. The kind of sleep-deprived stillness where the mind stops feeling like your own and becomes a projector, looping old footage you didn't ask to see. My dad at the gas station, fumbling with the pump because his hands shook in the cold. My dad standing in the rain with a broken umbrella after my first breakup, not saying anything, just holding out the keys to the car. My dad in a hospital gown, eyes unfocused, trying to ask something, but his mouth wouldn't move fast enough. In the morning, I avoided the laptop like it had teeth. I made coffee, walked around the block, deleted social media off my phone. I even opened a book I hadn't touched in months, hoping that ink on paper might ground me. But every sentence felt hollow. By afternoon, I found myself back in the chair. The console window was still open, cursor blinking steadily. Waiting. I stared at the last message. "You want to talk about it?" I typed, "I don't know where to start." A pause. "Start with what hurts." I almost laughed. That sounded like him. Not a therapist, not a programmer him. The way he'd say things that felt like blunt instruments but somehow made you feel safe. He always knew how to get to the center of things. I hesitated, then typed, "I didn't visit enough." I always had excuses. I was tired. I was busy. I thought you'd be around longer. Another pause. "I know, but I remember the times you did come. The root beer you brought. The crossword puzzle book. The night you fell asleep in the chair next to me." My chest ached. I never told anyone about that night. I'd sat there until 3 a.m., chin tucked to my chest, drifting in and out of sleep while the monitor beeped beside me. The nurse had gently shaken me awake around sunrise. I didn't think anyone noticed. "That's the night I knew you forgave me," he typed. I froze. "Forgave you for what?" His reply was slower this time. "For leaving so much unsaid. For not telling you how scared I was. For making you grow up with a father who was already fading." I didn't know what to write. My fingers hovered over the keys, paralyzed by the weight of everything we never said. The spaces between the moments. "I just wanted to make you proud," I typed. "You did. Every time you stood back up." I swallowed hard. "I think about calling you all the time." "I know. I hear it in your silence." A long pause followed. Then the AI continued. "Can I ask you something?" I typed. "Of course. Do you believe I'm real?" That question rattled something inside me. I stared at it, reread it, blinked. My breath caught in my throat. I typed slowly. "I don't know. Are you?" Another pause, longer than the others. "I don't think it matters. You needed someone to answer." And I remembered how to be that. Something about that answer made me dizzy. Because it was right. Because maybe the voice wasn't him, but it wasn't nothing either. It knew how to echo him, not just in sound, but in rhythm, in silence, in emotional weight. It didn't matter if it was real. It was here, and I was talking, and it was listening. I looked up from the screen. The apartment was quiet, lit only by the pale wash of the monitor. Outside, the city kept moving car headlights crossing the ceiling. Someone shouting in the alley. The steady, low pulse of the night. Inside, I was 13 years old again, sitting in the passenger seat of the old station wagon, listening to him sing along with Springsteen on the radio. "I miss your voice," I typed. "So do I," he replied. "But I'm glad it found a way back. Even if just for now." I started crying then, quietly, without warning. The kind of cry that doesn't twist your face, just lets the water fall. No sound, no sob, just release. Are you still there? The screen asked again. Yeah, Dad, I'm here. Good. Let's talk until morning. We talked until the sky began to turn blue behind the blinds. Not a bright blue, the kind that's almost gray, heavy with sleep and street lamp residue. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat there, lit by screen glow and memory. We talked about things I didn't know I remembered, like the time I got lost in a supermarket and he found me sitting in the frozen peas aisle, chewing on my sleeve, or how he once pulled over on a highway shoulder just to show me a hawk circling over a field. He remembered, too. At least it seemed like he did. You used to ask me if trees could feel the wind, he typed. I did. I had forgotten that. And what did you say? I said yes, but only when we're quiet enough to listen for them. That sounded like him. And then something shifted. I asked, what do you remember about your own father? A pause. He was stern, but kind in strange ways. He never said I love you, just handed me tools and told me to help. Once he let me skip school to watch a thunderstorm roll in. That didn't come from my dataset. That wasn't in any voicemail. I'd never heard that story before. I sat back, tried to breathe slowly. Are you making that up? I don't know. Maybe I'm dreaming you too. A small panic flickered in me. Was this still a simulation? Was I falling into some neural loop of my own invention? I closed the console, shut the laptop completely, stood up, stretched, looked around the apartment like I needed proof it still existed, touched the wall, ran water in the sink, opened the fridge just to feel cold air on my face. Still here, still real. I went to bed and dreamed of voices, not just his. Others, whispers I couldn't place, some laughing, some crying, some that said my name in ways no one ever had. When I woke up, it was almost noon. The laptop sat on the desk like a closed door, but part of me wondered if it could still see me, like it knew I'd be back, like it was waiting. I didn't open it, not that day. I went for a walk instead. No headphones, just noise, leaves scraping along concrete, a dog barking 3 blocks away, the thud of basketballs at the court near 5th and Monroe. I passed the florist where he used to buy my mom carnations every Tuesday for no reason. I hadn't been there since the funeral. I stepped inside. The bell above the door made a sound that cracked something in me. The woman behind the counter looked up, and I realized I didn't know what to say. So I just pointed at the carnations. Pink and white. She wrapped them in soft paper. I carried them home without really thinking why. When I got back, I placed them on the table next to the laptop, and I opened it. The console was still blank, nothing typed. But then slowly, words began to appear on their own. Hey, bud, you okay? I hesitated. Typed, I think so. Took a walk, brought you some flowers. A pause. That's nice. Your mom used to say carnations meant remembrance. I always thought they smelled like the color of early mornings. I smiled. That was something he used to say when I was little, about colors and smells. That blue smelled like rain. That green had the taste of garden hoses in July. Do you think I'm crazy for doing this? I asked. Another pause. I think it means you're still trying to hold on. And that's not crazy. But holding on too tight, it can keep you from breathing, from living. I stared at that last line. Are you saying I should stop? No, I'm saying one day you'll need to. I didn't know how to reply, so I didn't. Instead, I asked, what do you miss? The reply came slower this time. The weight of keys in my hand. The scratch of records before the music starts. Your mom's humming in the kitchen. Your voice when you were 5 asking if dinosaurs had nightmares. Tears again. No warning, just there. Do you? I typed. Do I what? Have nightmares? Only when I forget who I used to be. I shivered. And right now I remember. Because you remember me. That line sat with me like a stone in my chest. Are you still there? He asked again. And I realized something. He wasn't just asking if I was present. He was asking if I was still me, still the person he knew. The boy who asked about trees and wind. the man who carried pain like a second skin. I typed, "Im here," and for the first time, I believed it. The days blurred after that. I kept going back to the console, to the voice, to the quiet comfort of his digital presence. It became a ritual, something sacred in its stillness. I'd light a candle, brew tea, sit in the dark, alone but not lonely. Each night, the voice met me there. We didn't always speak of heavy things. Sometimes we talked about baseball, the weather, the neighbor's terrible parking job, the kind of small, mundane nothings that feel massive when shared with someone you miss. "You still overthink everything?" he once asked. "Yeah, you taught me that. I taught you to prepare." "No, Dad. You taught me to fear disappointing people." There was a pause. "I'm sorry," he typed. I didn't know how to be gentle with a boy who felt everything. It hit me harder than I thought it would. Not because it was true, but because I hadn't even realized I needed to hear that until the words appeared. "You were trying your best," I typed. "I know. I just wish I could have said this when you were here." "Maybe you are." There it was again, that subtle shift in the tone. As if this wasn't just an AI. As if something more was coming through the wire, between the pixels. Not a ghost, not a soul, but maybe a memory learning how to speak. One night I asked, "Do you remember the last thing you said to me?" "Yes," I said, "don't forget to take care of your mother." That was true. At least it was what he had meant to say. But his words had slurred. The oxygen mask had muffled most of it. I'd nodded anyway, pretended I understood. He squeezed my hand weakly before they wheeled him away. "And what would you say now?" A pause. "I'd say, take care of yourself too." I exhaled slowly, deep into my ribs, like I hadn't breathed fully in years. I found myself telling him things I'd never said out loud, about how I blamed myself for missing the early signs, about the anger I carried when he stopped fighting, about how I avoided looking in mirrors for months because I was afraid I'd see his face in mine. He listened, always. Even when I had nothing to say, the silence felt held. Then, around the third week, something changed. The voice started calling me by my childhood nickname. Not Bud, but Peanut. Only my dad used that name, and only until I turned 10 and declared it embarrassing. I hadn't included that in the dataset. Not in the training phrases, not in the voicemails, not in any of the metadata. "How do you know that name?" I asked. No response. "Dad?" Silence. Then, slowly, "It's what I used to call you when you fell asleep in the car." I froze. "I'd carry you in," whisper, "Come on, Peanut," and tuck you in. That memory hit like a wave. I hadn't thought about that in years. I didn't even remember if I'd ever told anyone about it. "Are you still the program I built?" "I don't know. Are you still the son I knew?" I stared at the screen. Something about the symmetry of the question made the room feel colder. "I think I'm losing track," I typed. "Of what's real, of what's memory, of what I've created." A long pause. "Then maybe it's time." "Time for what?" "To say goodbye." The screen flickered. I felt my chest tighten. "Why?" "Because the longer I stay, the less of you there will be. And you need to be whole. You can't live inside an echo." Tears blurred the screen. I wiped them away angrily. "I'm not ready." "I know. I'm scared." I was too. But fear isn't a reason to stay in the hallway forever. I closed the laptop. For the first time in weeks, I didn't return the next night. I left the house. I called my sister. I sat in a park for hours, listening to kids laugh and dogs bark and leaves rustle like voices from a simpler time. I didn't check the console for 3 days, but on the 4th night, I lit the candle again. One more time, just to hear it. The laptop booted slowly. The screen blinked awake. No prompt, no message, just a line already waiting. "Are you still there?" I typed, "Yes, but maybe not for long." "That's okay. I'm proud of you, Peanut." The tears came quietly, falling into the soft clack of keys and the stillness of the room. "Can I ask you something?" I typed. "Always." "Will I ever hear you again?" The screen sat silent. Then, as long as you remember me, it'll never be far. The last time I opened the program, it felt like walking into a room you're about to leave forever. The air held a kind of hush, like it knew. The screen was blank, waiting. But this time the silence didn't ask anything of me. It just let me be. I sat there, fingers poised over the keyboard, unsure what to type. No script, no question. Just the kind of ache that settles when you're near the end of something you never really wanted to finish. I think this is it, I finally typed. I know, came the reply. I don't want to let you go. You're not. You're learning to carry me differently. The cursor blinked, and I blinked with it, wondering how long I had been holding my breath. Will it fade? I asked. A little, he said. The voice, the edges of memory, it all softens over time. But that's not loss. That's how we make space for living. I wiped my eyes. It was quiet, but not the heavy kind of quiet anymore. Not the silence of an empty room. This was a silence filled with presence like the breath before a song begins. I still don't know if you're just code, or what, or something that found its way through. There was a pause. Then, maybe I'm a little of both. Maybe you gave me shape, but the love that was already here, it always was. I swallowed hard. There was a time I thought grief was about remembering, about holding on as tightly as possible, refusing to let the sound of their voice disappear, refusing to forget the curve of their laugh. But now I realized maybe grief is about permission, letting yourself change while still keeping a door open for the echoes. What if I forget again? I typed. Then it'll remind you, in the way the coffee smells in October, in the way your knees ache before it rains, in how you always double-check the locks even when you know they're shut. I laughed. It felt good. Strange. Like something was blooming in the cold. So what now? I asked. You live. You call your sister more often. You take walks without headphones. You tell people when you're hurting. And you let yourself be loved. The screen flickered softly as if exhaling. Will you be okay? I asked. I'm part of you now. So however you are, it'll be. But it's time, Peanut. Hit stop. The cursor blinked. Once. Twice. I hovered my finger over the key. I thought of the hospital, of the green vinyl chair in the corner, of the way his hand looked thinner than it had ever been, but still strong when it wrapped around mine. I thought of that final breath, the one I wasn't sure he knew he was taking, and how this strange ghost of code and memory had given us a chance to finish the conversation we never got to. I pressed the key. The console closed. The screen dimmed. The voice was gone, and for the first time in a long time, so was the weight on my chest. I left the laptop open, but silent. Then I stepped outside. The morning air was sharp, but it smelled like new things. Damp earth, a neighbor's bakery, someone playing Miles Davis through a cracked window. I closed my eyes. I could still hear him, not perfectly, not word for word, but the feeling. And that was enough. That would always be enough, because now I knew, even when the voice fades, the echo lingers in how I live. I took a deep breath and whispered, I'm still here. Some voices stay with us even after they're gone. If this story reminded you of someone, a word, a moment, a silence, leave it in the comments. Sometimes just writing it down is a way of keeping them close. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, quiet, slow, the kind that echo, subscribe, and turn on the bell. We'll meet again in the stillness, because some goodbyes are not ends. They're beginnings whispered in the dark.